Hello! Welcome GameGuru Land. This is Lee Bamber from the Game Creators on my count them third live broadcast on a new YouTube live broadcast channel, which you will find in a friendly neighborhood playlist near you. We have done our sound test prior to going live at 4 p.m, so I will risk not bothering you with a whole big excuse me, massive sound check and go straight into the subject matter. As you know, the format of these live broadcasts is extremely interesting for me. I have 15 minutes to say what I want to say, and then I have to stop. And anyone who is familiar with my previous broadcast on Twitch, asking Lee to restrict himself to 15 minutes is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, this is the third broadcast and I have failed so far to hit the 15-minute mark, but I'm going to attempt to do so. So in order to hit that 15 minutes, no more preamble, just a bit introduction to the template and then straight onto the subject matter. First thing is basically the ground rules. You can ask questions in the chat. Please feel free. Towards the end of the broadcast, I'm going to scroll through, look for questions. If you can mark your questions with question in square brackets, that will help me find it quicker, so I can answer those verbally. But any questions I don't get to, I will answer thoroughly in a forum thread on the Game Guru forum after this video has been finished and been put onto YouTube for everyone who wasn't able to watch it live. So that's how the questions are going to work. And I'm going to blast through some of the latest progress on the development of GameGuru MAX, which, if you didn't already know, is the granddaddy, basically, of game engines. It's going to be super easy to use and it's going to look amazing. And I can prove that in this live broadcast today. We actually have some pretty cool eye candy to show you for the first time. So I'm excited about that. So I'm just going to get out of this browser, which is my placeholder for your live broadcast intro, and have got some things to show. I'm going to show you what I was going to show you last week, ready for today, but I've since received a better one. So I'm going to show you the old one, but I don't think you've seen this. This one doesn't have any sound or anything. It's just a floor, wall, ceiling, staircase, a door. But what I want you to take closer attention to is the materials that are being used. The different grades of materials based on what the object is, whether it's wood or stone or floor, whether the floor is wet. But also take a look at that little square thing you can see there. That's an environment probe. Basically, it will grab all of the information around that blob and then use that in the lighting equation, something that the current GameGuru doesn't do locally. It only does it globally. And also, of course, the lights and the shadows. And remember, this is going to use the new Wicked engine, so multiple lights, multiple shadows, and multiple light types as well. So that was what I would hope would have been enough for my presentation. Ta-da! This is a really nice looking visual eye candy. I think we've already put a screenshot of this on the website, just to sort of wet your whistle a little bit. But then on Tuesday, yesterday, I got an update. I got more assets. Now, basically, what we're calling this is the Cellar Demo. It will be a showcase demo for GameGuru MAX. We'll be cramming all of the things we want to show off. Obviously, that includes lights and shadows, moving lights. As the light moves, the shadow will move, different types of lights. But also, you know, we want a sense of atmosphere. Remember, you're going to be able to play this in VR, right? So I want to frighten you a little bit. And in order to do that, I'm going to turn the lights down, give you a candle or something that might go out at any moment, and then stick a zombie in the room. And so the next thing our very nice artist is going to be working on is a zombie. And I want it to be very creepy. I want it to be more suspense than sort of visually gross. It's, you know, we've done visually gross zombies, but in the cold light of day, they're not that scary. But a zombie that you can hardly see and scrapes around the floor and you don't quite know where he's coming from and they might leap out at you from the dark, yes, that's more Alfred Hitchcock. So that's what I'm going to aim for as our showcase. So our last showcase, if you remember from GameGuru Classic, was The Big Escape. That was outside, running around some rocks and canyons and shooting people. This will be more suspense, maybe a bit more of a story, a bit more of atmosphere. So that's really what I'm aiming for. But enough of me wittering on. I want to show you what I got yesterday, and I added some sound to it and did a little bit of video editing. This is probably going to make it into a full YouTube video. I've added some suspensey music for you. So as you can see, it's like, okay, so we've got lights. Now just bear in mind, you're watching this over a live broadcast video stream. So not only is the quality going to be chopped around with, you might not get it like I see it, so you're going to get some reduced version. So don't worry if you've got any of those artifacts. When we put it at 1080p on YouTube, we get to see it in all its glory. Also, there's a couple of visual artifacts I need to point out right away. The mip mapping is off. So what you call pixel swim in the distance, that's because right in the distance it's using the same texture as the one you'd use up close. Mip mapping is a way to sort of blur those textures out so it looks more natural in the distance. So already you can see there's lots of things going on, more than I can mention in the next 5 minutes. Certainly the subtle reflections off the floor, there's puddles where it's like drenched in water. You've got the lens flare and you've got the different kinds of lights. Obviously wood is now set to quite shiny. The metal pipes that are on the ceiling and the walls, those are even shinier. This design, this won't be exact. We're going to rearrange the cellar so it's when you play the showcase it'll be darker and you don't quite know where everything is, so you're going to have to feel your way around. But this is really just to show some of the assets that we'll have to play with to build our cellar. You can see some really nice pipes, love pipes. You've got any pipes, just a floor wall and ceiling would be a bit boring without a lot of really cool pipes to put everywhere. And all the different bric-a-brac you might find in an abandoned cellar. And of course this is the door. That door that either leads you into the cellar or allows you to escape from the cellar. So this probably, maybe a few tweaks, will go up on YouTube as a sort of a teaser for the sort of graphics that you'll be looking at. All thanks, in part to the Wicked engine, because, Janos, he has really thought about the lighting model and how it works and doing it properly. And then we found a top artist, someone who really understands that level of detail that would do the graphics engine justice. And all I really did was glue those two people together, and that's what you saw here today. I can't take a lot of credit for that, but I am certainly very proud to be able to put it into GameGuru MAX as our solution for our next game making product. So I'll just switch that off, just checking the time. I think we're making good time actually. So moving straight on to the demos. Now, in the previous broadcast, I showed you let's get that running. I showed you the terrain and the graphics demo. What you're actually looking at here, which is actually quite amazing, it's called streaming terrain. So it's not a big block of terrain data that was just dumped into memory and then you scroll over top of it. As you move across the node-based terrain system, as a terrain gets closer to the camera or the player, it will then decide to import the extra data that it needs, such as the height map and things like that. So you don't need it all in memory at once. And because it's running on a separate thread, it doesn't interfere with performance. So it will tick along quite nicely, streaming in the background as you need it, as you move around your potentially very huge terrain. So as you can see, we have gone with the node-based terrain system. It is the right thing to do. And I just want to switch over to the next demo. Don't worry about these gaps, and I'll show you in the next one. We've got even more gaps. This is really just to show that you can actually stream in terrain data on a separate thread and get the frame rate that you might need. The next one is Lod. As you know, you can't render 500 million triangles to the screen in brute force. Simply doesn't work. All terrain systems for the last probably 15 years have reduced the complexity of the terrain polygons as those polygons are rendered more into the distance. And we use something called Lod, level of detail. We break down the terrain into different degrees of detail. So let me just go straight up to this first one. That is at full detail. You see right there. I should have shown you the triangles, but take my word for it, that's a dense mat of polygons. But if you look up, those mountains in the distance, if they use the same density of polygons as these here, it would absolutely crawl. So what's happening here, and this is just a prototype, don't worry about the speed or the FPS at this point, it's actually breaking up this single 1024 1024 height map into quadrants. Maybe quadrants isn't the right word, but patches, and it's cutting them up. And each of these patches then has the option of reducing its load level, reducing the number of polygons it needs to represent the shape. And we're going for 6 levels of LOD, from the nearest, which is the highest, all the way to the distance, which is the lowest. And what we have now, the little coloured cubes indicate which LOD level it's at. So as we move across the terrain, these cubes change as the LOD levels change. Now you can see that it's actually visibly changing because we've not got the texturing. These are just basically pure geometries, no texturing tricks to hide the LOD pops. Once everything's in place, you won't notice the terrain change its LOD level as you get closer or further away from it. And another thing you'll have noticed is these great big gashes. This was deliberate for a prototype because one of the next things we're working on, in fact it's already been worked on, is what's called Lod Stitching. So if you've got, this is LOD level 2 and this is LOD level 3, you want to be able to stitch them together seamlessly. Now there's a really cool trick when you do this. When you're actually standing here, and you can see there's only a little bit of a gap there, Lod Stitching just makes sure that all of the polygons here nearest to me are higher than the polygons that you see over there. So we're going to have some sort of Polygon Stitching algorithm, ideally done in pre-process, and ideally any sort of real-time stuff done on the GPU. So effectively you would never see a seam between the LOD transitions. And then once the stitching has been done, there's a few stability issues that still to be tackled, both on the streaming and the LOD. And then the last stage before we move to terrain texturing is optimization. That is, take a look at what we've got and see how much of it we can chunk onto the GPU in good time. Now, there are techniques, certainly the Far Cry 5 technique moves a lot of the stuff onto the GPU. But you would be taking months to do that, if not, half a year. And we don't really want to delay the project that much. So providing we get the frame rates that we need to render the whole terrain in geometry, then we'll move on to the texturing. And between you and me, and I've worked a lot on terrains, it's the texturing that ends up slowing down your experience, not the geometry. We just want to make sure that we've got a good coverage of polygons done efficiently and fast. And another little trick is, once we have lots of terrain, I mean, see all these are individual draw calls at the moment, but imagine if your terrain was flat and you didn't care what happened 2 miles away. This little tile here, this patch, that could be flat. But then you don't need to do a draw call for a flat tile, another draw call for another flat tile. You can instance them. So that same flat tile can be duplicated. So it's one draw call and it will render 2 patches or 4 patches. Or in the case of a large terrain, a couple of thousand patches. So you could have the detail in this little square that you want and do all your detail, but all the way around you, it could be flat, all on a draw instance, or even better, which is the one I like, use a sort of seamless Perlin noise generator, which would generate a patch that is actually seamless when it offers up to its brother. So it's the same rough terrain, but when you match it up to its same self on its left, right, top or down side, it actually matches perfectly. And that means you can have an instance or one draw call, which would actually draw hundreds of these terrain patches all into the distance, but have all of this undulation. So if you happen to be in the sky and looked across, you would actually see all these undulations at whatever LOD level is required. So I've just been looking at the clock. I think I've done it again. Maybe this is the private challenge for me to get and finally do a live broadcast under 15 minutes. But I've certainly covered the subject matter in 15 minutes, so I'm really proud about that. I'm just going to switch back over to the chats, because I said I'd answer a few questions verbally and then the rest on the forums. So I'm just going to scroll through and I'll read them out for you. Are we going to see the update graphics today? I think I've answered that question. Are we going to see the new graphic system today? Was reposted with the square bracket question, so thanks for that. Will we get an alpha? Yes, I'm planning an alpha on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the download. Like I said, it may go backwards or forwards, but I'm going to leave it as a surprise so we can talk about it over the weekend. Another question, will there be allies included in GameGuru MAX question? No. No, there are no significant improvements to the AI system for GameGuru MAX. We're going to focus on terrain and the new graphics engine. Now, that sounds like it's been scripted, because it is, because I've answered that question about 50 times. On any feature that people want to see in Max, I'm pushing all that to one side. I've kind of learned my lesson. I will be delivering two things, a new terrain system and a new graphics engine. And that is plenty. For a small team like us, that is plenty. If we can deliver those two things, your games will look so much better and take advantage of newer graphics GPU capabilities. Then we can start talking about adding features on top, and not just for the Max community. If any of those features is conducive to make it part of Classic, then we'll do that as well. We're not leaving Classic behind. We're bringing Classic with us as a low-end 32-bit solution of our Game Maker range. Max is for the better graphics card and a decent spec. So moving on, not too many questions actually, so we might get through them all verbally. Is there going to be a material editor? No. Use an art package, or there's plenty of stuff out there much better than we can cobble together. Substance Painter's really good, and then apply that through some 3D modeler, and then import the model you've created, and then that will be supported in proper PBR rendering. But we're not in the business of writing 3D modelers or recreating Substance Painter. Another question. APK iOS export system? No. This is a Windows 10 and above only product. There is no plans to make it run on Mac, and there's no plans to export it so it runs on Android or iOS. Max is really for a decent graphics card, and you won't find that for a while on mobile systems. Here we go. Can we have dynamic weather? Yes. Well, we have some weather. We've certainly got rain and snow. We're going to improve those effects. You may already have seen them elsewhere. Maybe a little touch of wind, something like this. But we're not going to go crazy. You won't believe you're in a typhoon. But you'll certainly be able to have some weather. You'll certainly have some weather. Dynamic, that's subjective. It depends on what you mean by dynamic. A little bit dynamic, like you can switch it on and off, sure. Another question, will we have levels to build on, like making a basement, then upstairs, then outside? Well, you could use the structure editor. You can actually paint a ground floor and then page up, and then paint your first floor, page up, second floor, connect it with stairs and walls and ceilings and things. So we already have that in GameGuru Classic. We'll be making some small improvements to that for Max. Will we have a material and weapons editor? Weapons editor, no. We'll provide a couple of weapons to start you off with. There's a really excellent weapons pack coming out in the future. More on that when I'm allowed to talk about it. And I will be doing a template which shows you how to make your own weapons in a modeler and how to bring them in and configure them so they work in GameGuru MAX. So that's how we're going to approach that. We're no longer in the business of trying to provide 4,000 assets. What we're going to do is give you the capability to import high quality assets. That way you're going to get some nicer looking games and they look a little bit less like asset flips. Another question coming down here. Make sure I don't exceed the 20-minute mark, which was my grace period I was allowed. Is there a roadmap or a long-term plan for any features after launch in September? No, we're focusing purely on the release and making sure this release is a good one. Obviously, we're going to continue to do lots of things afterwards, but I'm not going to focus on that. I want to put all of my energies, all of my thought processes, and I want to get this September launch right. So forgive me if I don't have a 5-year plan. As you know, you may know in technology, plans can change very quickly, and it doesn't pay to make a 3-year plan. What if the Indiegogo doesn't reach its goal? It's unlikely to reach its goal currently. I've not seen any influx, likely mostly due to exposure and marketing. We're just going to see what happens with Indiegogo It's not doing well so far, but please, if you do want to send that link out to your friends and stuff so they might check it out, please do, because at the moment it's not getting a lot of exposure. Lod system works only with terrain. Of course not. Of course not. When you drop in an entity can have Lod levels. So as that entity goes into the distance, it will switch to a lower Lod. We already have that in Classic, and it will be retained in Max. Will you support UWP, Universal Windows Platform? No. That uses a completely different API. You'd have to rewrite the engine from scratch. There's no guarantees we generate that level of income to justify rewriting that engine in that platform. We're going to stick to Win32. It will always be supported for as long as there is a Windows, in my opinion. So no plans to do UWP. Going down to the end of the list now, actually, I think we might get all these done verbally. Got about a couple of minutes left. Can it run on Xbox? No. No cross-platform support for GameGuru MAX, just Windows 10 or above only. Needs Lod for static. Is it possible? I see what you mean. At the moment in GameGuru Classic, when you make something static, it bakes it in. And it doesn't use Lod because you need a dynamic-y thing, and which means a dynamic entity for it to be Lod. We can look at that. If we raise that up in the GameGuru forums, we can look at that. That's not an impossible thing to do. And as we are playing around with the basics of the graphics engine, we can maybe make that a factor. Because the difference between static and dynamic shouldn't be that much, really, at the end of the day when you actually render it to the GPU. Going down, will we have full body awareness? Full body awareness? Well, we all have full body awareness, most of us. If you talk about VR and like bodysuits and stuff, no. You'll just be able to have the headset and the VR controllers. And we're now 22 minutes past the hour, which I'm afraid means any more questions, we'll have to wait for the game. In fact, that's probably a good lesson. If you have any questions, have them ready before the broadcast starts and just start bombarding, because I read from top to bottom. But all the remaining questions will be put onto the GameGuru forum thread that will be prepared after this live video has been recorded and put on YouTube. So I hope you enjoyed the little sneak peek into our progress on the terrain system, but I really hope you enjoyed our visual treat of the Cellar Demo and its current progress. And I absolutely look forward to showing you more on that in 2 weeks' time on our next live broadcast, which will be broadcast number 4. So until then, it will be the same time, 4 p.m. BST on a Wednesday. I shall say goodbye. Thanks very much for your kind attentions, and I will talk to you in a future video or broadcast. So until then, goodbye.